Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this channel, you'll be learning how I made these beautiful palazzo trousers. So if this is what you would like to learn, you can continue watching, and please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Thank you. Okay, so what we have here, I've already marked out my length and I've already cut out my length and the width out. So for the width, what I worked with was my thigh round divided by 2 plus 1.5 inches, while for the length I used my actual trouser length for the length of this. So the next thing we want to do now is to mark our vertical measurement, and one thing to note while marking the vertical measurement, I'll be leaving an extra 2 inches from the top from my tape. So I'm marking my hip line, crotch line and my knee line. So I'll just go ahead to mark it out. So don't forget, you're not starting from the tip of the tape, you leave about 2 inches, which is 7 for our band. So I'm marking my hip line, my crotch line and my knee line. So I just want to mark it around, and after doing this I'll use my straight pattern ruler to connect it. So the lines are very faint because of, I don't know, I tried using chalk but it was not even visible at all, it was worst. So I'll just try to explain so that you can understand what I'm doing as this video goes on. Well, if you have any question, you can drop it in the comment section and I will promise to attend to it. Thank you. So what you want to do here is to get your hip round divided by 4 plus 1 extra inches and mark it. So I'll be marking it on my crotch line. I'm yet to mark out my hip line. So you can go ahead also mark your hip line. I'll do that later. So I'll just go ahead, mark it round and use my straight ruler to connect it. So on the left side, what we have is our side trouser, and on the right side what we have is our center trouser. So you'll be marking it on the center part of the trouser, which is the right side, and after that, as I did, you use your straight ruler to connect it. So the next thing you want to do here is to mark your waist round. So for the waist round, you divide your waist round divided by 4 plus 1 inches and then 1.5 inches. So 1 inches is for the sewing allowance and 1.5 is for the dart intake. So I'll just go ahead to do this. So before that, I will want to mark my hip line here. So don't still forget, while marking our hip line, we're taking 2 inches away from the tape, from our tape measurement, starting from 2 inches. So after this, so our waist round, which is our waist round divided by 4 plus 1 inches and 1.5, mark it, and then we'll go ahead to use our straight ruler to connect it to the hip line. So after that, the next thing you want to do is to mark out your dart intake. So for the dart, I will be measuring the midpoint from here, and what I get, I'll come down by 4.5 inches and use my straight ruler to connect it. After that, for my dart intake, I'll be doing 0.75 inches on both sides, which I'll go ahead to mark and use my straight ruler to connect. So the next thing we want to do after the dart intake is to measure in our crotch line. So from the crotch line, I'll just divide my hip measurement by 10 inches, and what I have, I'll just go ahead to mark it there, and I want to connect this. So to connect it, I'll just come from where I'm placing my tape is on the hip line, so I'll come in there by 0.25 inches and you connect it, so it will serve as a guide for me to connect to the up. So that's what I've done here. So what we want to do next is, from that point where we marked, we'll measure from there to the side trouser and get the midpoint, and we'll mark it from the crotch line to our knee line for now, and that will serve as our crease line. So I'll just go ahead to mark it on my crotch line and mark it round up to my knee line, and I will go ahead to use my pattern ruler, my straight pattern ruler, to connect it. So you could also go ahead to mark it to your hemline, which is also fine, but for now I'll just be stopping at my knee line. So the next thing we'll be doing now is, from our crotch line, I'll be marking 3 inches down. So you could do 3 inches to 2.5 inches, and this line will be serving as our tie round. So after marking down, you just use your pattern ruler to connect it. So on the tie line, we want to mark our tie round. So our tie round divided by 2. Let's say your tie is 20 inches. So divided by 2, you have 10 inches. So from the crease line, you mark 5 inches to both sides. Then after the 5 inches, you add extra 1 inches for sewing allowance and half inches. So that will be, let's say that should be 6.5 inches. So you go ahead and mark it on both sides. And you also mark that tie round, that what measurement you have. I'll mark it on my knee line. This tie round measurement to be acting as, that's what I'll be using for my trouser width. So I want to go ahead now to mark my knee line, connect the line from my knee line to my tie line. So that I'm just going ahead to do. So I'll do that for both sides. This is very close to my end. So after this, the next thing we want to do now is to connect to our crotch line. So I'll just use my curved pattern ruler to do that, which as you can see here. So I'll do this. So for this other part, I'm just going to leave it like that, or you could just like connect it straight because it's not going to affect, but I'll just use my pattern ruler to just connect the line straight, just as you can see here. So the next thing after connecting all lines, next thing I'll just want to do is to go ahead and mark this down to my hemline. So for this, I'll just go ahead to just use my straight ruler to connect it. So what I'll be doing now is to connect my crease line to the hemline, and after that I will just want to go ahead, so the tie round measurement, and I also want to go ahead to mark it down. And so literally our front part is okay right now. The next thing you want to do is, after doing all of this, so after cutting out our front, so the next thing we'll do is to place our front on the back, folded into two, and our back width should be 2 inches wider than the front, and for the length it should be 2 inches also longer than the front, while the hems will be placed equally and the up part, the extra 2 inches will be there. So for me, my fabric was actually very little at this point, so that's why it's like I have very little inches for the width wideness. So I'll just try to manage it, but for you, you should do 2 inches so that you don't have issue when trying to curve it out. So at this point, what I want to do now is to mark from my crotch line. For the front, the part of the front that you keep is the one that has the measurement. So I'll mark from my crotch line 2 inches, and from my waistline, my crotch line 1 inches, and the waistline 2 inches, and I will want to use my pattern ruler to mark it to the top. So you will mark it even up to the extended 2 inches at the back part. So you mark it out just as you have here, and this will be our crotch line for the back. So our back crotch line is actually different from the front. So after this, next thing you want to do, so I just want to mark it well, as you can see here. Then I was just trying to like test different markers so that I'll get a very visible line. So I just hope this is visible enough. So the next thing we'll do, so this our waist, I'm trying to confirm the front waist measurement, and from that line we mark. So I made a mistake here. So for the back, you will not just mark it like this. So what you are going to do is, from the waistline, the starting point from the waistline, you mark about 1.5 inches up, and from that 1.5 inches, which I noticed my mistake here, I'm trying to correct it. So from that 1.5 inches, you mark you measure your down to what your exact front waistline. Like, so for the front, our waist, my waist measurement round of that was 8 inches, and which is what I'm marking down there, and I'll use my pattern ruler to connect it. So I just hope this is explainable enough. If you don't really understand, you could drop a comment and I'll try to explain better also. So after this, the next thing we want to do now is from this our back crotch line. So from this back, what we want to do is to mark out our hip line from this back crotch line. So at this point, it was like a backfire now, like the shortage of my fabric was about to affect me. So I was just trying to think on how to go about it. So for you, as far as your fabric is enough, so from the cross line, you just mark your hip line and which will just come out. So right here, what I'm just trying to do is just to extend it a bit, and I'm just trying to find a way to like adjust my measurements so that it does not affect it. So after that, affect arranging my fabric where I'll just want to go ahead and mark my hip line from the crotch line. So I don't know, my hand is covering this, but I just hope you get from the crotch line, you mark your hip line. And at this point, it's like I was still confused, yeah. But just know that I don't know, I've said this more than how many times. I just mark your crotch, your hip line from there. So what I just want to do, because I had extended this to the end a bit, I just want to like adjust my measurement so that it does not worry me. So that's just what I'll be doing here. So just be patient a little bit while I try to adjust my measurement. So I just want to be adjusting my waist measurement, and I think I extended my crotch line a bit more. At this point, if you see my face, you'll be seeing sweat, a lot of sweat, and a facial expression of I don't know. I was just like kind of confused that this thing cover up, will it not cover up? I was just trying to be hopeful that it would cover up. So at this point, I think it had. I was able to see that it would cover up. So after marking my waist measurements, which was 8 inches. So the thing here is just to like mark your waist measurement, then come to the hip line, mark the hip line from the crotch line, and to extend your pattern ruler from the waistline to the hip line. That's just the magic that is supposed to happen here. But because of shortage of fabric, I was just kind of confused. So at last, I think at this point, I was able to get my exact measurements, and I was kind of happy because with everything I with. So from that, I don't know, my hand is covering this, but from the back crotch line exactly, and that's on the hip line. Take note, you mark your hip measurement. So your hip measurement, after marking your hip measurement, you connect it to the waistline. So for the crotch line, after connecting to the waistline, for the crotch line, if you remember, for the in we when the measurement we took came in the for the front for the crotch line, we did our this in divided by, I don't know if I divided by 20, and for the back we'll be dividing it by 10, and what we have we'll mark it out, and it will serve as our new guide for the crotch line. And so not this, our hip actually divided by 20 for the front, and for the back divided by 10. So what you have, like, you just go ahead to mark it here, as you can see, and thankfully again, at least it did not go out, it was able to cover up. And from the hip line, as we did for the front, we'll do 0.25 and use your pattern roller to connect it to this new hip, to this new crotch line. So I'll just go ahead to want to use my pattern roller to connect this. Okay, so the next thing you want to do after this is to cut it out. But this, regarding this part, I understand that it was a bit confusing because of the mistake I have. But please, if you have any question, you could drop a comment, and I'll just like to do a pattern drafting on this, on a plain paper, on how to go about this, and I'll post it in the and I'll post the video. Whenever I post this video, I'll add it to the description so you could see how to go about for your back parts. And I'm sorry for whatever inconveniences this must have put you through. So I would just want to go ahead to cut out this part that I've measured out. So for the front, I will cut it out. I'm sorry, for the back part, I'll cut it out. And for this part, because most of this drafting was on the front pattern, I will get a tracing wheel to trace out on my pattern, on trace out to the back so that I can cut it out. So that's what I'll be doing right now. And for you, alternatively, you could just like go ahead to draft this on the back, the trace out the front to the back, and just draft this front this thing on the back, so that whatever thing you're doing, you're just doing it on the back. So after tracing all of this out, I would just want to go ahead and cut it out. Another thing here that I used this marker pen on my fabric, and I'm just here thinking and praying to God that I hope this will wash out. But hopefully it should, sha. I will try my best. So for this back, I traced it out and I'm cutting it out. So for the leg parts, I'll just follow this and cut out. Follow the front this thing, but what I'll be doing that I'll be adding just half inches to the side. I did not cut that, as you can see. I did not cut out exactly at the this measurement for the front. I just added half inches down and I'm cutting out. So with this, our pattern, our this fabric abi pattern is ready, and the next thing we want to do after cutting out is sewing. So don't forget, if you have any questions, please don't forget to drop it in the comment section and I'll attend to all of it. So after cutting out, this is for my front and back. I will want to go ahead to join the crotch lines together. So this is for the front. I'll just go ahead, sew this cross line, this line, as you can see here, by half inches. I'll do that for both the front and the back. So this is what I have. I've gone ahead to cut out my band. So for the band, I did 2 inches, 2.5 inches, then half inches for sewing allowance. So before sewing your band, you want to sew your dart first. And if you can remember, we marked in 0.75 inches on both sides, which is 1.5 inches for the dart intake. So I will just be showing what I'm doing here. I'm just like showing how to place the band while sewing, well, how to place the band to sew to the up part. So after, but before you sew the band, you have to do this thing, sew your dart first. So this is my front part, and I have gone ahead to mark my dart intake, my dart measurement already on the wrong side of the fabric, and which I will follow this step on my sewing machine to sew it for both sides. And then this is my back. So for the back, how I'm going to go about it is I'll just fold it to the center front equally, and what I have, I will sew by 0.75 inches, and for the back, that the length I'll be sewing down to will be 5 inches. So right here, I'm done sewing the band for both the front and the back. So the next thing I want to do is to place my back and front, my front on the back pattern, as you can see me doing here, and I'll just go ahead to place it, lay it where. After placing it, we want to sew half inches on the side and half inches on the inside. So why doing this? To be sure it's well stable, you could actually use your office pin to hold it down before going to the sewing machine to sew. So for this crotch part, remember the back crotch line is longer than the front, so you just bring it and make sure it is equal. Just as you can see me do here, and go in and sew by half inch here. Half inches because the allowance we kept for sewing allowance was 1 inch, so we're sharing half inches to both sides. So we'll just go ahead, sew half inches from up to the hemline for the inner part, and for the side, I will also go ahead, sew half inches. So we're doing this for both sides, and after this, our trouser is almost ready, and the only thing left will be for the zipper. So I'll just go ahead, try to place this well, and go to my sewing machine and sew in. So for the zipper on the side, while sewing, I won't sew from the top on the part where I'll be having my zipper. You could choose where you want your zipper, either on the left side or the right side, but whatever part you're placing your zipper, you won't sew from up. So you just come down by from 7 inches down, and from there is where you will sew down. and that part will just be reserved for the zipper. So I'm done with that. So the next thing here is to sew our zipper. So I'll just go ahead for the part I left open, sew my zipper following the line down, and our trouser is ready. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe. Thank you.